Throughout the course of history, the rise of many great empires and the doom of many others, if there's one thing that has been common among many communities and monarchies, then it is inbreeding. Inbreeding fundamentally refers to the union of people that are closely related by ancestry, and this practice was more common than one would think. Today, we will be talking about the inbreeding among siblings, a historical legacy of pain and suffering. This practice has had multiple reasons which varied. Different communities had different reasons, and monarchies had different reasons. Some of the most common among them would be for the preservation of their bloodline, keeping their blood pure, and to preserve their wealth by marrying among the kin. Inbreeding has been a very peculiar practice that has been going on since ancient times, and its roots can be traced back to centuries ago. A lot of empires and communities have followed the practice of inbreeding among themselves, the reasons being such as that of preservation of purity, status, and wealth. It was a well-calculated move for that time, since people were unaware of the aftermath of this tradition for the most part. From the royal houses of Europe to the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, the corridors of power have long echoed with the disturbing tales of incest. But what were the ramifications of this practice, and how did it shape the course of history? For reference, let's take Charles II of Spain, who was born of the Habsburg inbreeding. He suffered from a litany of health problems as well as impotence, which led to the tragic end of a dynasty around the late 17th century. Or take the example of ancient Egyptian pharaohs like Tutankhamun, who was the result of a brother-sister union and was plagued by physical deformities and health issues. Now you must have a slight idea of everything that was at risk when these influential figures of the time indulged in this practice: the desire to maintain pure bloodlines, to concentrate power, to control alliances. The reasons were myriad, and entwined with the social and political fabric of the time resulted in dire consequences at times. Yet, as Charles Darwin had observed, in the long history of humankind, those who learned to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. It seems that inbreeding, while consolidating power in the short term, was clearly against nature's insistence on diversity and directly challenged nature's way. And it wasn't just one or two generations of such acts, but it was rather a practice. Amenhotep I, one of the most famous of the kings of Egypt, was born of 3 generations of sibling incest. Similarly, the boy king Tutankhamun, son of Akhenaten, was born of a brother-sister relationship and later married his half-sibling Ankhsesenpaten. Cleopatra, too, was the product of a sibling union. The effects of multi-generational incest appear to have taken a toll on the royal family. Tutankhamun suffered from a genetic bone disease, to be precise. Relationships like this were permissible for the pharaohs precisely because of their extraordinary bloodline. As Egyptologist Zahi Hawass has elaborated this phenomenon, a king could marry his sister and his daughter because he is a god, like Iris and Osiris, and this was a habit only among kings and queens. In some ways, it's about preserving the purity and strength of their divine blood. Well, now we know that there wasn't anything special about anyone's blood, but back then this was the common belief system that people followed. There were some claims that something similar was happening among Neolithic Irish elites, and it was claimed to be a way that elites can separate themselves. They get to break a taboo. They get to break a social convention that others aren't allowed to. Much to their detriment, these practices yielded in many unintended consequences. Intermarriages were also a part of the British monarchy, although they weren't as notorious with it as the pharaohs of Egypt. Throughout the history of the British monarchy, intermarriage has played a crucial role in shaping the course of dynastic politics, alliances, and not to forget the continuity of royal bloodlines. One notable period highlighting this practice is the Victorian era. Queen Victoria, whose reign extended from 1837 to 1901, strategically arranged marriages for her 9 children to royalty across Europe. This deliberate intermingling of bloodlines became known as the royal intermarriage, and was aimed at creating a web of alliances which would help safeguard political stability and peace. Queen Victoria's descendants married into key European families, such as those in Germany, Russia, Greece, and Spain. This interconnected network had far-reaching consequences, especially during times of geopolitical tension. Notably, World War I saw cousins from different European royal houses on opposing sides of the conflict. However, the interconnectedness also led to the spread of hereditary health issues, which affected several European royal families. As the 20th century progressed, intermarriage within the British monarchy evolved, incorporating new considerations such as love and personal choice. Nevertheless, the historical precedent of using royal unions as a tool for political strategy and consolidation of power has left a lasting impact on the institution and its role in shaping the destiny of nations. Too much intermarriage among the royal families of Europe has led to the emergence of many undesirable physical qualities, which allegedly include the Habsburg lip and, on the more harmful side, the prevalence of the blood-clotting disorder hemophilia, which was observed among the descendants of Queen Victoria. One problem with the commonly believed preconception to this royals-only exception to incest is the data from Ptolemaic and Roman-era Egypt around 2nd to 3rd century BC. As Keith Hopkins demonstrated in 1980, during this period most full brother-sister incestuous marriages were non-royal marriages. In the Roman period, censuses reveal the shocking information that brother-sister unions were common in Egypt for the first 3 centuries AD. Not just that, they constituted about 15 to 20% of all the marriages. It is further noted that these marriages were far from being anything taboo. In actuality, such marriages were celebrated, publicly announced, and in all respects, ordinary. There was nothing about them that seemed especially alarming or uncanny to anyone. There is no ancient commentary on genetic flaws or unsuccessful relationships. From the 3rd century onwards, however, they disappeared entirely from papyrological records. This is likely due to an edict published in 295 AD by the Emperor Diocletian that specifically forbade incestuous relationships throughout the empire. In the rest of the Roman Empire, these kinds of unions were considered a social taboo. Accusations of incest were levied against outsiders, including early Christians, as a sign of their moral depravity and barbarian nature. So, these marriages went from being normal and accepted to being a prohibited act for virtue signaling. A limited gene pool in a species can, and very much does, have a negative impact. This is known as inbreeding depression, and also refers to a population decrease, which is due to lack of healthy mates. The problem can have a simple solution. Adders in Sweden were isolated due to farms and suffered an increase in stillbirths and offspring, suffering from congenital defects. New adders were added, and their population flourished. This is called outbreeding for obvious reasons, and while it seems to be the go-to solution, there is a catch. Endangered species such as the black robin have such a small population that is left of them that there is no scope of outbreeding that might help to replenish the population. It is to be noted that a lot of cultures that have a prominent history of inbreeding among themselves also have a similar mythology related to their cultures, such as for the Egyptian mythology, which included examples like Nut and her full brother Geb, Shu and his full sister Tefnut, Osiris and his full sister Isis, and Set and his full sister Nephthys. And as for Greek mythology, the list is almost never ending, but a few prominent figures are Uranus and his full sister Gaia, Cronus and his full sister Rhea, Nyx and her full brother Erebus, and there are many more. Do you think this can perhaps have some relation to the way people perceived the rights and wrongs at the time? While at the time, the royal dynasties enjoyed the short-term preservation and concentration of power, in the long term, this very same overextending method to preserve power became the reason for their doom. Many kingdoms fell akin to this and crumbled. With the development in medicine and science, it is now easy to map the diseases and disorders that are because of inbreeding and incest. And it is certainly very clear that none of us have any kind of divine blood. Do you think the decisions that were taken with the knowledge that people had in those times were suitable? What are your thoughts about this history of inbreeding among us? Let us know your opinions down in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to let us know you enjoy our content. Until next time.